Hey everyone, Chief Meteorologist Dan Scoff in the Weather Lab. Got Josh Rugger. You got some flyaways there on your hair
Got
going
the
on.
got the hat hair right now. Been out and about, so I'm trying to put it down. But look at this; it just keeps going all over the place. It can't tell.
Yeah, that's what I looked like about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah.
Listening to our sermon online as I was scooping ice out of the pool for the fourth time already. I am
Oh
so
my.
tired of winter. I can't wait for winter to be over. Unfortunately, it's not. We've got ice storm warnings, Josh. We got changes to the ice storm warnings. We got a lot of other things that are going on. We also got, hey, we got another guest that's joining us.
We
Meteorologist
got
Peyton
three.
Langford holding down the fort as well from the home. How you doing,
Yeah.
Peyton?
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing, gentlemen?
Well,
Hanging in there, man.
if
Tired
you
of
can't tell
winter.
by the hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the ice accumulation forecast that's going up with the hair?
Yeah, it's ramping up, right?
It's ramping up. We don't want to waste a lot of people's time. It is a Sunday afternoon. It's 12:30. We do not have a 5 o'clock show, but we have a whole bunch of weather. So I'm already in the weather lab. We're going to take a look at some stuff, and we got a lot of different winter alerts, to say the least. And Josh, you provided a map this morning with everything. We already have to change it again. So
Yep.
we have consistent changes that are going on. Let's take a look here at what we've got as we check out these weather graphics. So here's a look at the winter storm warnings. Now, these are the previous alerts, but I've got to take this off of here. We're going to step through this one by one, and we're going to look at the different weather service offices that have offered different things. So first of all, a winter storm warning now in effect for Washington and Madison County, as well as Adair and Sequoia County. That starts at 6 o'clock tonight, goes until 3 p.m. on Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and mute your mics just for a second, Josh and Peyton. Well, Peyton, you've already muted yours, I know. But so we've got that ice storm warning that goes 6 o'clock in the evening, starting later than the counties to the east, and that goes until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, originally it was looking like it might warm up by noon, but it's always colder. The models struggle with Arctic air. And so that's the first thing you need to know. Ice storm warning in the River Valley also. Now, this is the Weather Service out of Tulsa, 6 p.m. until 3 p.m. Same timing, but just a different location. Now, as we look off to the east, this is the Weather Service out of Little Rock. So we have a different time for this, and it makes sense because it's farther east. So the onset of this will be a little later, 10 o'clock in the evening until Monday, 3 p.m. So they're all kind of showing Monday, 3 p.m. Jeremy's asking a question. Will schools be canceled because of this? Well, my son asked the exact same thing not too long ago. I'm going to bring our panel on, see what they think. Me personally, I think with everything that's happening and the potential for icing, what are you guys thinking? I'm unmuting your mics here. So, what do you guys think? School cancellations tomorrow.
We always say that we can't tell what schools to do. We can't tell them what to do. We only give recommendations. But with the potential for significant icing tomorrow morning, and the fact that with this Arctic air masses, sometimes they stick around a little bit longer than even what the models are showing. I think it's going to be tough for schools to have any class tomorrow, especially in the Valley, but also Northwest Arkansas as well. Peyton, I'm assuming you probably agree with that too.
Yeah, 100%, especially because it's a shallow layer of cold Arctic air. So models definitely aren't going to have that sticking around for as long as it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And another problem is that, the roads could get real slick real fast, and it's going to happen overnight tonight. So it's not warming up. I can assure you that it is not warming up. I don't have any snow melt in my backyard. There's ice on the ground. The ground is cold. Yes, the roads have improved, obviously, from what they've done. But as soon as they'll start to get wet, especially bridges and overpasses, they are going to be slick. They are going to be iced over, and it is not going to be fun. Now, I want to go back to the graphics here because a lot of people wondering about areas farther north. So we've got this right here, winter storm watch. Now, there is a little bit of confusion behind this. I'm going to keep you guys on at the same time we're looking at this. But there is a lot of confusion with this, with these winter storm watches that are out, because like we're already 6 p.m. Sunday night was when it starts. So why isn't it a winter storm warning if it's a winter storm watch? And the reason is because of the uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty as in terms of the icing accumulations in Benton and Washington County. New data continues to come out. It does not look like Benton and Carroll County are going to get the worst of this icing potential. Me personally, who really needs to be concerned is areas in the River Valley. We're talking St. Paul, Pettigrew, southern Madison County, central and northern Franklin County, Ozone and Harmony, and those areas in northern Johnson County. You need to be watching this close and expect potential power outages. Also, southern Newton County. Notice how that's been upgraded to that ice storm warning. There's an uncertainty with the icing accumulation. We're going to get into it. We're going to take a look at it, and we're going to look at a lot of other stuff too. I just want to run through all these alerts real quick because it is confusing with all the different weather service offices. Then the farther north you got, the less impacts and the less potential for significant icing. So you got a winter weather advisory that starts at 9 o'clock. So you got different times, 6 o'clock starting, 9 o'clock starting, 10 o'clock starting. It's just like, that's the beauty of living in an area where 3 weather service offices cover our weather coverage area. Then you've got this that starts at 6 p.m., goes until noon. So it's like, to make a map out of this, Josh, it's a futile effort at this point. There's just the alerts.
So one thing I want to mention too, earlier on this morning, you noticed that portions of the River Valley, especially around the Fort Smith area, were under a winter storm warning and not under an ice storm warning. And I know there was a bit of confusion about that, especially on social media this morning. The reason why that was the case is because the National Weather Service office in Tulsa is experimenting with impact-based warnings. So they felt initially that a winter storm warning was warranted over an ice storm warning because they didn't expect as much in terms of power issues in western areas of the River Valley. But now you can clearly see that has been re-upgraded, I think, to an ice storm warning to include that potential for power outages over the entire area. But I thought that was kind of interesting this morning because you saw those winter storm warnings in far western portions of the River Valley rather than ice storm warning, which we see now.
Yeah, exactly. Great point. Peyton, if you got anything to add, just chime in. People are asking us about how much ice we're going to get. We're going to get to the accumulations, obviously. We're going to take a look at it. Keep in mind that an ice storm warning means accumulations of at least 1/4 inch or greater. So let's get to it. Let's look at some of the models. We're going to look at some of the data. We're going to look at the timing because I know you guys have questions about it. We'll bring this up full as well. Here is a look at the ice accumulation. So we'll bring up this graphic right here. First of all, this is not what I originally had loaded up. So let's check this out. This is the satellite and radar, and this is the system that's coming in. Come on, animate, would you? There we go. So this is the system that's coming in. We can already see the precipitation. There's no doubt going to be widespread precipitation. The temperatures are right now borderline, right at freezing, but still very, very suspect in terms of with the dry air in place, we're going to get that icing accumulation. So let's take a look here at the different computer models. This is what I wanted to load. We're going to bring this up full and we'll check it out. So first of all, these are the different models. We're going to get all of us off the screen and we're going to take a look at this in full so you guys can see, and we'll bring these graphics up. So first of all, the first thing to note is the graph. The graph, I believe, Peyton and Josh, I think have a good handle on this system. So here's a look at the graph. We're talking. Notice how Fayetteville doesn't have as much ice. There is a reason for that. We're in higher elevations, and that southwesterly flow will start warming things up. I've seen it before, and I'll see it again. When you get that southwesterly flow in higher elevations, you actually start eroding that warmer air layer down to the ground, and that can actually warm your temperatures. But there's a look at 2,200ths of an inch in Rogers. Now, Josh, you were looking at it yesterday. Peyton, you were as well. That seems to be an uptick on this model in terms of icing accumulation for the Rogers area.
Yeah, pretty good uptick for far northwestern Arkansas for sure. And you remember, Dan, we were talking about this yesterday too, how the graph was showing not all that much in Northwest Arkansas or the River Valley early on in the model run, but now it's very aggressive, much like the European model, which is really showing a bullseye, significant icing in eastern portions of the River Valley there. Woo, that's got to be 3/4 of an inch right there in terms of accumulations in the European model.
Yeah, we'll look at it a little more zoomed in, but I just kind of wanted to show you the different varying solutions. I think the GFS is out to lunch. It doesn't handle the cold air and the low levels well. Speaking of lunch, Peyton, I think I'm going to get that Jimmy John's barbecue chicken sandwich again today. Crush that thing.
Yeah, good stuff.
That thing is legit. We're going through it, Hydra. So just watch and you'll see. Here's a look at the NAM. The NAM is underdone, but it shows that bullseye in the River Valley. And so this, by the way, is the 12-kilometer NAM, not the 3-kilometer NAM. So we're going to take a look at some other weather forecasts as well as the icing accumulation and zoomed in levels. Now, I can say with a very, very, very good confidence that this is not going to be snow. This is not a snow event. I'm supposed to do a weather talk for Arkansas Master Naturalists. That's not happening today because I'm here at work. But he said on his phone that his weather app was showing a 7-inch accumulation for a wintry mix. And I'm like, what was that coming from? That is a terrible forecast.
Yep. That's why you need the Your Weather Authority app, because we specifically put down the hour-by-hour details on there for Fayetteville and Fort Smith. Now, I know the other cities, they are randomly generated, but it's generated from the graph, which is doing a good job with this ice accumulation potential in Northwest Arkansas. But those generic weather apps, so mid, so suspect.
Yeah, they are. They're terrible. All right. So let's look at some of the zoomed in views here on some of the models, and we'll check this out. So first of all, we're going to start with the lowest out of everything. And then we're going to go into our forecast. So this is the NAM, and this is the lowest out of everything. And it shows about 1/10 of an inch. This would be best case scenario, in my opinion. I don't think this happens personally. I think this is best case scenario, but it's not the most realistic. Now, everywhere is going to get icing accumulation, so be aware of that. It doesn't take much to cause issues on the roads. It could just be a trace and a few hundredths of an inch. So I don't agree with, first of all, these totals. But one thing I do agree with is every single square inch of the area gets icing. So we know that. And that's going to be mainly overnight tonight and into the morning. And it starts as early as this evening. Let's take a look at the graph now. We'll do the 4-kilometer, different story. This is the 4-kilometer graph model. So first of all, the icing accumulation, it's starting right around 9 o'clock. So it might be a little bit later for the onset, but sometimes that's a little slow, especially with the amount of energy. And you can see that icing accumulation. Now, when the worst of it's going to happen is in the morning hours. This is even when we can get some convective precipitation. So there's a potential for some convective freezing rain, meaning thunder freezing rain. When you get that, you get a dramatic increase in accumulations. And that's exactly what this is showing right here between about 10, 11. And that's why that ice storm warning goes until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, those totals are starting to get pretty serious. And north of Clarksville, which is exactly where Charles is at, in the foothills of the Boston Mountains, that's starting to get too high. Man. So there's your bullseye right there in the River Valley. And we'll show you the reason for that. Let's take a look at, I don't think the HRRR with our model system does ice accumulation. Does it, Josh? Or do we just not have it?
I don't think we have it. It has. Yeah.
Does it do it?
It has to. I mean, I know we don't have a graphic for it, but I would be very surprised if it didn't.
Huh. Well, that's something I can make after this Facebook Live for the next Facebook Live we do tonight.
Yes.
So let's take a look at the timing here. This is the ice storm timing, and this is the most recent that we have. And something happened there. All right. We'll just look at our accumulation totals. So after looking at all that data, I'm going to bring this up here on Weather 1. There we go. Meanwhile, I'm going to try to while you're talking about this, both Josh and Peyton, I am going to try to make an HRRR 3 HRRR 3 kilometer. See if it even has it.
Well, Peyton, you and Zach have been, revising this map over the last couple of days. Kind of talk about, what your thought process was behind the totals that you see here.
Yeah, so I first started making it Friday, and we didn't have one like this, with the Earth highlight. There was the one that was just a general swath across the whole screen, but I started off very broad with that 0.5 to 0.1, just kind of the general swath, and then another kind of smaller bullseye, mainly focusing on the river valley up to the foothills of the Boston Mountains, and then an even deeper bullseye right around St. Paul, northern Franklin County, just kind of right in there, because that's how I figured, that's what the models were showing, that bullseye being right there. But it's interesting to see it uptick, which isn't that surprising because with Southwest flow, models often underdo precipitation just as a whole. But it's crazy to see that could get up to half an inch of ice. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really crazy too how things kind of went from 0 to 100 with this system. And that typically is what happens with freezing rain events. The middle part of last week, it didn't look like anything that significant, but obviously the models, as we get more high resolution models in, they're going to do a better job, have a better grasp of that Arctic air potential. And I think this map does a really good job too, Peyton, of kind of showing, the farthest you have to go in the river valley where that easterly flow is going to be a little bit more prevalent, at least longer than northwest Arkansas. It kind of shows where that bullseye of heavier ice holes are going to be. Of course, you guys made this ice accumulation map before they even issued any winter storm watches or ice storm warnings. And I think it's pretty dead on in terms of where we're going to see the most significant icing for sure, especially along the Interstate 40 corridor. I think that's where the sweet spot's going to be.
Yeah.
One thing I changed, guys, was the particles on that. So it was showing snow particles, and we know it's not going to be snow. So,
yeah, that didn't change.
No worries. But change that, so it's all going to be freezing rain. But
yep.
No, the HRRR is not available on our system.
Wow.
With icing, which is exactly why we don't have it.
Wow, that shocked me.
I know.
Send in something to them on that.
Because I thought for sure that I would have made it if we have the ability to make it, I'd have made it. So let's go through all these different models and let's take a look here at what we've got. So this is the Canadian, and remember, all we're looking at is ice. We're not looking at any snow. There's no snow potential at all. This is just all ice. See, when you go to ice and snow total, there's absolutely no snow showing up. Look at Winslow and St. Paul. And look at Fayetteville on that.
Wow.
Whoa.
The Canadian going crazy on that. That's wild. I mean, that's like worst case scenario right there.
Yeah.
So, we were showing the NAM, which is the best case scenario where most locations get around 1/10 of an inch or less. That is the worst case scenario right there, where the Arctic air kind of gets dammed up. It doesn't move, and it sticks around longer throughout the afternoon. That would be bad news right there.
Yep. And there's no contouring on that because that's an ice snow graphic. So we contour the snow, but here's what the contours of the ice. Good.
Whoa. Look at those deep colors. That's crazy.
Now, see, there's the outliers. And this is obviously an outlier with that. Let's look at the ECMWF here. So we'll go through all these. And this is what makes a modeling, computer models so difficult, and winter weather so difficult. So this is, notice not much happening until the early morning hours. And there's the icing accumulation after it's all said and done. Now, that still shows it piling up after 3 o'clock. This looks more realistic to me, but notice the high levels in the river valley. That's still not good. Let me bring this up full so you guys can see on a little, computer screen and whatnot. Cassville, 4,500ths of an inch of ice, almost a half inch. Now, there's going to be varying amounts. Look at Jasper at about a half inch. Ozark, Clarksville, there is a consistent signal from the models that there's going to be trouble in southern sections of the Boston Mountains.
What's the latest winter storm severity index look like, Dan?
So that's a good question. I've actually got that pulled up, and we can take a look, as a matter of fact. I've got a couple of things that we'll look at now. We're going to transition to computer graphics over here. We're going to go from computer graphics to desktop. So this is the winter storm severity index. So let the camera, since I'm the only one in here, now it can follow me. Tomorrow looks like it's going to be bad. Half inch of ice is bad. It is. It only takes a quarter inch of ice to cause sporadic power outages. A half inch of ice is going to be trouble. An inch of ice is going to be potentially catastrophic. I got to look at these Sperry Pilts index too. So we'll look at that as well. All right. So let's take a look here at, first of all, this is the winter storm severity index. And you can see that winter storm severity index is showing moderate impacts now, making it all the way to Fayetteville. So the moderate impacts all the way to Fayetteville and the Boston Mountains. Me personally, I think we're going to see an uptick on this, and I think we're going to see major impacts starting to creep up, especially in the river valley. See, you can see it right here, the Ozark Natural Forest. This is the area that's going to be the most concerning. Right in there. Now, I brought up some other graphics because we're going to look at some things called probability. So first of all, this is the experimental winter storm outlook, meaning what is the probability of exceeding that half inch or a quarter inch of ice to make it winter storm criteria? And it's 50 to 80% in this bullseye right here. I can take the opacity down a little bit so you can see that's literally Johnson County, Franklin County, the Ozark Natural Forest. That's just north of Clarksville. Those areas right there, a 50 to 80% chance that it exceeds warning criteria. Now, you saw the models really showing heavy icing, especially the Canadian, over the Northwest Arkansas area. But I don't know. It doesn't look as likely because now you can see that that's mainly focused a little bit to the east. And so that's only a 10 to 30% of exceeding that quarter inch of ice. Look at what's happening in south central Missouri. Now, what's interesting is you look at this and you go to freezing rain. We're not on snow. If we click on snow, there's absolutely nothing that shows up on snow. So this is all solely due to freezing rain. Now we can look at some probabilities. So that's what we'll do. We'll look at some probabilities. And this right here is the probabilistic map. So what's the probability of by 6 o'clock in the evening on Monday night, the probability of exceeding over greater than or equal to a 1/100th of an inch of ice? And the answer is very high. We're talking 95 to 100%. So we know at least we're going to get over, equal, or greater to 0.01. That's a 1/100th of an inch. If we look at a 1/10 of an inch of ice, we still got some pretty good probabilities, 70 to 80, and you can see 80 to 90, 95. So over a 1/10 of an inch of ice is still looking likely in the river valley. Not as much, though. Start dropping those probabilities down. But I can tell you 80%, 70%, that's still way up there on the probabilities. Quarter inch of ice. Now we're talking ice storm warning criteria. The probability goes down because, let's face it, it's a rare event to see a quarter inch of ice. But you're looking at greater than or equal to a quarter inch of ice. Now you got probabilities of 40 to 50%, and then 50 to 60%. So, but Northwest Arkansas, not really seeing that quite as much. Now, what about the worst, over a half inch of ice? So it doesn't show very good probabilities for over a half inch of ice, which is interesting because some of the models on the outliers are showing greater icing potential that could exceed over a half inch of ice. But here's the thing with probability forecasts, and Josh and Peyton, you can chime in on this. They're great to look at, but they don't handle systems that are stronger than what the models show.
No, absolutely not. And they also a lot of times do not typically they don't look at the outliers very well either. So like you
No,
saw, like some of the models that we were looking at, like the Canadian, even the European, had over a half an inch of ice in portions of the river valley, and there was multiple models that had over half an inch of ice in portions of the river valley, and it's only showing about a 5 to 10% chance. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the system could overproduce, especially along the Interstate 40 corridor where that easterly flow is going to be maintained a little bit longer.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I've
I
seen
know
those.
this, guys. We were talking about. We got a lot of comments on here about the ice storm warning of 2009. Yes, ice storm warning of 2009 was absolutely tremendous. I worked it. I remember it. It was a 3-day ice storm. This is not going to be that, or 2.5 days really, because it started overnight Sunday into Monday. Monday got bad. Tuesday was bad. And it was January 26th to the 28th of 2009. Then on Wednesday morning, in the very early morning hours, the ice came to an end, but we saw a little convective band of snow, as a matter of fact. It wasn't thunder snow, but it was heavy. It was heavy snow. We aren't going to see anything like that. The icing that happened in 2009, it stayed cold, it remained cold, and temperatures were just way colder than what we're seeing with this event. Now, in order to understand, we got to let's look at some of the system here. Let's see what we've got here with this system. Instead of just looking at the models, let's kind of look out the window. Well, this is what we call looking out the window. And looking out the window basically says, well, let's look at the current conditions. Let's look at the system. Very impressive trough off to the west. We can see the system that's digging. Look at all that precipitation out ahead of it. If you watch the San Francisco Green Bay game, it was pouring down rain in San Francisco most of the game. And that was a system that's basically coming here tonight and into tomorrow. We got to look at the water vapor here in order to understand where the energy is. And that's what we're going to do. Let's look at it. So pretty intense low, but it's a very progressive system. The positive tilt of the trough on 2009 was very slow moving. So we had band after band after band of precipitation that produced a lot of ice. 1.5 to 2 inches of ice in some locations. Springdale saw just under 2 inches of ice, and we're not going to see that. That's just not going to happen. We're not going to have the 2009 ice storm. But with that being said, every ice storm is different. There was the ice storm of January 12th through the 14th of 2007, and 2007 was a big ice storm, but it was mainly in northwestern Benton County, where it didn't really impact other areas. That's because the Arctic air wasn't in place yet. We've got the Arctic air in place. It's coming down. So, and we can see the colder air, but this southwesterly flow is going to start eroding these temperatures. So let's look at the temperatures. Let's see where we're at right now. 30 degrees. So the cloud cover rolled in. It's just not going to be as much. I think the cold air is underdone, honestly. So I think the icing accumulation could tend to favor more. But
It already is underdone because the models yesterday showed it in the middle 30s already in Northwest Arkansas at 1 o'clock, and we're sitting below freezing still. Trash.
I can tell you it's below freezing. It's freezing outside. I'm getting tired of it, and I think I've felt like the movie Frozen, where they're chopping ice and picking it up, and it's just like that's all I've been doing lately.
You need to start like a business at your house, a nugget ice business with all the ice from the pool.
This almost makes me not like nugget ice anymore. So.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I never thought I would hear that from you.
I have enough ice. All right, well, let's take a look here. I mean, first world problems. So let's look at the timing here. Kama, one of our good friends, Kama and John Davis right there says, I'm late to the party here. What time does this start? So we have the chance of precipitation beginning at 6 o'clock, but I think really everything is going to start picking up around 8, 9 o'clock is when we're going to start to see that precipitation start picking up. We'll look at the future track models. We'll see if they verify, but there's your timing right there. That gives you an idea of when you can expect the precipitation. If we look at the graph here, this is a not the graph model, but a line graph that shows, again, that precipitation timing. There you can see it clearly ramping up. The worst of it is going to be in the early morning hours on Monday. That's when the ice is going to accumulate the most. That's when the temperatures are going to be suspect in terms of how close they are to freezing or how far they are below freezing. So we've got that precipitation that's coming clearly. There's your timing right there. How about Russellville? Russellville looks to be potentially ground zero, maybe a little bit south of ground zero in terms of the heaviest icing accumulation. All right, let's look at some computer models. Here's a look at the HRRR. This is the hourly updated HRRR. I'm going to bring this up full, guys. Feel free to chime in whenever you want. But here's a look at this timing. First of all, it's underdone on cloud cover. It barely has any clouds. It does have lower 30s, so it did okay with that. But why is it going to warm up to 33? That doesn't make sense. I don't think it does. You can tell it's cold out there. The clouds have rolled in. They're already totally overcast, and I just don't see that. That thinks it's still sunny. It's not sunny. All right, so the rest of it, there it is, starting to come in right around 6 o'clock, which is exactly why the models may be picking onto something that it's coming in a little sooner.
And the thing is, a lot of that's going to be freezing drizzle as well out ahead of the main piece of energy, which causes that glaze really quickly, especially with the temperatures being so cold over the last several days. That is going to accumulate very fast, and that's going to cause travel problems if you're out and about this evening. So, we're talking about tomorrow morning, how hazardous travel is going to be. If you're out and about this evening and we've got freezing drizzle falling, that causes big-time problems. I could barely get out of Bella Vista last year when we just had a glaze of ice. Last January. So this is going to cause big-time problems this evening as well.
12Z Euro with a big uptick on ice accumulations. I'm sure it is. We'll look at that because it's not fully out yet, so we can't show it in our weather graphic system, but we can show it on a lot of other stuff. How about this? This is a good question. I live in Missouri, but I have church in Bentonville from 4 to 6. Should I stay home? I mean, 4 to 6 is a little early, in my opinion. I think that it's not going to happen that early.
Especially
that's a little early, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't know where you live in Missouri, but there's always a chance it comes in sooner. So it's best to look at the radar, keep updated with our Weather Authority app, and we'll give you the latest. Now, see, it's kind of sporadic. Something interesting with winter weather icing accumulation events is you get this like sporadic precipitation, and it's just not very heavy until those heavy bands start rolling in, and that's going to happen right there. So that's when the icing really begins, is about, midnight is when it really starts coming down, a little bit before even, like 10, 11 o'clock, and then it really starts piling up. Now, at this point, gosh, that is some really heavy icing. But look at the temperatures, 31, 32. I don't believe that. I think that's too warm.
Yeah, that's way too warm in my opinion as well.
Yeah.
Because, we've been talking about this too throughout the week, and Peyton and Zach did a great job explaining this as well over the weekend. The sweet spot for significant ice totals is about 29 degrees or lower, right? If you're borderline freezing, it can sometimes be a struggle for the ice to accumulate as quickly. But I think tonight we're going to be in that sweet spot in terms of temperatures between about 27 to 29 degrees in most locations. And that's why those ice totals can really start ramping up. Now, look how quick it warms things up during the afternoon as well, Dan. I mean, it's already 34 degrees at 5 o'clock. I don't believe that at all with the HRRR. I think that's way too low.
No, I don't either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And see how it still has 32. And so here's the deal. The model, if it has 32, it's going to accumulate ice. If it's not, then it doesn't. So all those ice accumulation graphics that you're seeing, that's not really what it's AI is trash when it comes to weather. It just is. I know AI can do a lot of stuff. It can write an essay for you. It can write a paper. It can write articles. It can answer your school homework. It can't forecast the weather. I mean, it just can't. It does okay. It does okay in times, but it's just like, how is this going to warm up? Now, I can see this when that low level, flow really starts kicking in. But if we get this type of precipitation right here, and we're still in the lower to middle 30s, and that's what the Canadian is showing, is that we will be right around freezing. This could be real trouble if that continues to be icing accumulation. Now, another thing to note too is even though it's warming up in the low levels of the atmosphere, you already have that icing accumulation that's chilling surfaces that are elevated. So if you add water onto ice, it's going to freeze that water and it'll lead to more icing accumulation on elevated objects, even though the ground temperatures are above freezing. It's exactly what's happening with my pool. It's cold, you add more water on there, the ice is freezing, it continues to get thicker and thicker and thicker. And I don't know, man. This looks pretty rough to me, in my opinion. Yes, I do believe it does warm up by Monday afternoon, just above freezing, but I don't think we get into the 40s. I would be floored. I'd be amazed. I think upper 30s is possible. I think 40s is just crazy. Peyton, is that what the graph was showing like last Friday?
Yeah, pretty much the same story.
Gosh.
Same with the NAM too. The NAM 20-kilometer was what we could use. That finally came into range for at least the early shows. And then by the time for the nights, I think like the higher res NAM came into range. So we were able to show that. But yeah, it was the same kind of story. Hovering around those lower 30s, some spots being at 28, 29 range. And then by the afternoon, it showed the lower 40s.
That's just warming it up really quick. So, in my opinion,
that seems a little overdone, especially with Arctic air masses. They always stick around longer than what the models are showing.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at some people have questions about Carroll County. So let's right here. What is the forecast for Carroll County? I know you guys asked specific questions. We're just giving you the overview. Before we can dive into all the specific totals, you got to give you the overview because there is so much uncertainty with totals. So here's the NAM, underdone in my opinion. So you know what? We're just going to trash that model. Maybe it's right. If it is right, I'd be very happy because that just seems like it's underdone in my opinion.
Isn't it kind of funny how it does a 180 between winter weather systems? Because last week it was showing a crazy amount of snow in Northwest Arkansas. It was the only model that was doing that. This week it's the only model that's showing very little ice besides the GFS.
So here's the local for Carroll County. This is what it's expecting. This is the graph. And this only takes us through 3 a.m. But by 3 a.m. it only's got 2/100ths of an inch. But that makes sense because the worst of it is going to be later. I guess we don't have. Let me go here. I got to do a different one.
That's the graph 3 kilometer.
I know exactly. So here's the 4 kilometer. I got to update a bunch of stuff. We don't normally get a lot of ice, so there's a look at so about 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch, honestly, for Carroll County. And Chris said it doesn't feel 31. No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. I'm in Springdale. 35 feels like 27. 35 seems a little warm to me. But there's a look at that's the icing accumulation with the RPM, or the graph, really, essentially. The RPM isn't a thing anymore. I guess we can't get the 3K on this. Trash. Here's a look at the 4 panel. So we'll look at the newest European too, while I've got this up here. I'm going to go over to this computer. I'm going to bring up the latest European as it comes out. Another thing too is there's different varying icing accumulations. Sometimes they're heavier, sometimes they're lighter. It just depends on essentially. Here we go. Oh. There we go. It's kind of like the different accumulation totals with snowfall. You gotta look at different things. So freezing rain total, I guess the 12Z is fully out already. I'm going to bring this up, though, for you guys. So there's the that's the newest one right there. And here's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to, because that stuff doesn't have a readout, this does have a readout. Oh, good. They have a floater right over us. Perfect. Winter. Come on.
That's typically not a good sign if they have a floater.
Yeah, but they'd also. What's going on here? I guess I'll look at Pivotal.
What you could do on Weather Bell is like right click, open the image in a new tab, and like zoom in on the readouts.
Yeah, but it doesn't have ice accumulation for some reason. I don't know why.
On Weather Bell?
Yeah. Yeah, on that. Stand by here. Bring up this. So there's our ice accumulation. We've got to obviously adjust that. We've got to do some major adjustments to that. But here we go here. Sorry, I'm getting this loaded up for you. Okay. So I noticed that the Fram does a pretty good job. We'll go to forecast loop. Definitely an uptick. Definitely an uptick. Okay, so bringing this back up on Weather 1. We'll zoom in here on Arkansas specifically. Yeah. So there you have it right there. 1/2 inch of ice. Okay, so this does have an active readout. So we can look. According to the European, we got about 3/10 of an inch in ice in Rogers, about 3/10 of an inch in northwestern Benton County. So that includes Gentry, Gravette, Decatur, Siloam Springs. I mean, this is ice storm warning criteria. 1/4 inch of ice area wide. You have 0.72 of an inch area wide in Johnson County, 0.7 of an inch. This is all over 0.6 of an inch. Guys, I'm not liking this at all.
No, that's a pretty reasonable amount.
There we go.
I think that's not far off from the truth, honestly.
I'm not liking this. This is looking worse and worse. And the last thing we need is power outages.
So that's one thing too, Dan. I'm getting a lot of questions in the comment section that I'm seeing right now. What about the wind speeds tomorrow for portions of the River Valley?
It's a good question. When the system comes through, I'm sure the winds are going to start picking up.
Yes.
Another
thing that the HRRR was underdoing, I was watching the winds too. It had like southeasterly winds between 5 to 10 miles per hour tomorrow. I think they're going to be more about 10 to 20 with maybe gusts up to 25 to 30 miles an hour, especially along the Interstate 40 corridor in the River Valley as that high pressure is retreating off to the east. Got the system coming in from the southwest. That's bad news right there with the wind speeds. Peyton, what are your thoughts on the wind speeds as well, especially in the River Valley?
No, yeah, you're definitely going to get that funneling effect. It's going to be a really tight pressure gradient. It's going to create some stronger winds than what models are showing, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing too. So I'm seeing a lot of questions as well, guys, in the comments. Is there the potential for it to be colder? On the surface, is that going to lead to more sleet? Well, the thing is that the reason why we're seeing freezing rain is because the Arctic high is retreating to the east. So the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere is well above freezing, but here at the surface, we're still below freezing. So maybe we have a little bit of sleet initially, but this is mostly going to fall as freezing rain. In fact, I think 95 to 99% of it's going to be freezing rain in our weather coverage area. But it doesn't matter how cold the temperatures are at the surface. If that column of air above the surface is above freezing, it's going to be freezing rain.
Yeah.
So I see a lot of questions like that in the comments.
Okay, so I got some new stuff here for you. This is the Sperry Pilts SPIA index. I'm going to zoom in on this. This just came out, and we've got 1 to 2. So this is a 0 to 1 and a 1 to 2. And there's parts of Madison County close to us that are in a 2 to 3 range. Now, I know you're wondering, what do these scales mean? We'll get to that. This is their icing accumulation. I think this is underdone according to what it shows in the river valley, 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice. I think there might be more. The models are signaling that there's a definite uptick in the river valley, and I think we're going to see some changes, perhaps a 2 to 3. 3 to 4 is overdone, but it's possible in Franklin and Johnson County that we could see over a 3 to 4. Let me do this and bring this up full so you guys can see what we're talking about. So this is something called the Sperry Pilts Index. If we look, there's different panels and all this stuff, so I got to do this kind of one at a time. But first of all, this is the 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 scale. I'm going to show you what this all means. So some isolated and localized utility eruptions are possible, typically lasting only a few hours. Roads and bridges may become slick and hazardous. So that's a level 1. A level 2, scattered utility interruptions expected, typically lasting 1 to 2 hours. So those are the orange categories. So we come back here and look, we are pretty much all in the orange category.
And it makes sense because this is not going to be an ice storm, like you said, Dan, that lasts multiple days. This is going to be more of a short-term period of time where we're going to see that ice during the morning and perhaps the early afternoon hours, and then temperatures warm up above freezing for the rest of the week. So, I'm seeing a lot of questions too about when it will melt. It's going to melt pretty quickly, but in that short-term period of time, we're talking about pretty significant impacts, not only in terms of the roadways, but also in terms of power, especially in the river valley.
Then you got a 3 area, numerous utility interruptions with some damage to main feeder lines and equipment's expected. Tree limb damage is excessive. Outage is lasting 1 to 5 days. So we come back here and we look, and there are some areas that are in that red category, that red shade, up to a 3.
Is that in Madison County?
That's in Madison County.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be adjusted. This constantly updates. We come back here. This also shows you the expected wind graphic. Now, this is only based 24 hours in advance, so you can't get anything else ahead of 24 hours in advance. But if we go down here, this is the expected wind forecast. So we're talking 15 to 25.
Ooh, not good.
Then it starts to weaken. So that 15 to 25 was ending at 6 p.m. tonight. So that's the stronger winds now. And then still expected to be around 15-25 with that icing accumulation. So we'll continue to watch that. We'll check that out. Let's look at a different model here. Here's the NSSL. They all show that bullseye in the river valley.
Man, I think that model is doing a really good job, actually. Like when it comes to terrain and everything.
Yeah,
I think that model does a really good job. Wow.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like with Pivotal is you roll over this thing and it immediately jumps to that. So it's like, in order to get to the different model run, it's a pain in the butt. Let's look at the FV3. Here's the FV3. Now that doesn't show any icing over northwest Arkansas. So there's still a potential that maybe it doesn't happen in the Benton and Washington County area. But looking at that, that's the outlier for the low
big time outlier.
The RRFS. Holy cow.
That one's a little farther north.
Oh, my goodness. 0.6 of an inch. But see the higher terrain right there, you get that southwesterly flow, and that eats away at the low levels of the atmosphere. So in order to pinpoint exactly who's going to get the most and when, it's a futile effort.
Always is. The thing is, and the one thing that I'm just continue to stress with this system, and especially when it comes to ice, a little bit goes a long way with ice. It doesn't take much to cause problems. So even if you see only a few hundredths of an inch at your location, that's still enough to cause big time issues on the roadways.
Yep.
Especially with how cold the temperatures have been over the last several days. So tomorrow, I just can't stress enough. If you can delay travel, do it, because you don't want to be caught out in this mess during the morning hours.
You see that?
Is that an inch? That's 2 inches almost.
1.97 on the
That's a NAM 3 kilometer?
What? And that's all right in that area of the river valley.
Holy cow.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
looking at the highest pixel, but still, I'm giving you an idea of what's potential. Oh, man, oh, man.
It's about time to wrap up the wrap.
Yeah.
I like that.
Wrap up the wrap.
Wrap up the wrap.
All right, guys. Well, here's the deal. I've got my work cut out for me. I'm going to organize these ice graphics a little bit better. We're going to put them all into a separate category. The Canadian is absolutely nuts with the heavy icing. So personally, this is what I think we've got going on, guys. We're going to break it all down for you, but this is what we're kind of thinking. So first of all, let's hit the highlights here. It's a freezing rain, ice storm warning for parts of the area that's expected. We already have that. We already ran through all the alerts. It basically starts tonight as early as 6 o'clock. It's more likely going to be around 9 o'clock that it really starts to happen. Then we're going to see that freezing drizzle initially, and then it starts to turn to freezing rain. The reason that we're going to see the freezing rain is because of that warm layer of air that's aloft. We can look at that on all the models. We got the southwesterly flow. We actually never touched on that, did we? The precip type. So this real quick is a breakdown of the precipitation type. So we've got, first of all, in wintertime, it all starts as snowfall because it's cold enough aloft where it's all snow. But this is the freezing rain profile that we have. So remember, in the south and southwesterly flow, we've got that warm layer of air. So you've got cold air above our heads. Then you got an even warmer layer of air that's above that. That's just below that. And then underneath that, near the ground, you've got this cold layer of air. Now, the problem is this layer of air is very shallow. It's very low to the ground. So these raindrops that are falling, they don't have time to refreeze into an ice ball, which is, of course, sleet. When you have that cold air that's deeper at the surface, then you get that warm layer of air that melts the snow and turns it into a raindrop. But it's because it's cold enough, it'll freeze that ball of ice, and that's what you see as sleet. And then, of course, what we had a week ago, we were cold everywhere, and we didn't have that warm layer of air. And so we just basically saw all snow. It's that warm layer of air that's going to kill us in terms of icing accumulation. That's what's going to basically eat away at everything. Here's another look at the 3D precipitation type. So this is what we have. Remember on Saturday or on Friday, really, that Arctic air moved in. It was really in the early morning hours that it moved in. That's that shallow Arctic air layer below freezing. It's already in place. The warm layer of air that's above freezing is surging in from the south. You got the very cold air aloft. So unfortunately, areas that are right in that swath of freezing rain, you get frozen precipitation that falls, but it melts into rain and freezes on those cold surfaces, coating them in a layer of ice. So that's what we're going to see.
The worst winter weather type. The absolute worst. It does not get any worse than freezing rain.
Nope. Really doesn't. All right. Well, I think that about does it. That wraps it up for this this live weather update. Of course, we're going to look at some latest data. 18Z model data will be coming out. We still have snow on the ground. We still have ice on the ground. It's not clearing out. It's not warm. It's below freezing in a lot of locations. Let's take a look here real quick at the temperatures. So this is what we've got right now. We got upper 20s in Siloam. Yes, it's at freezing in Harper's. That's my face too, Harper. Just real quick, just so people
got a kitty cat too.
just so people can see it. 32 in Bentonville and XNA, 31 in Rogers. And hey, where's NATO?
Yeah, I got him.
You got NATO?
Yeah.
He's on his lap.
Let's bring.
Being a little feisty right now. I woke him up from his nap. NATO, say hi. Don't be mean. Thank you, NATO. I know. I woke you up.
NATO's camera shot right there. Harper isn't. Harper's right on there. All right.
Yeah, she was staring at you, Josh, like it's time to feed her or something.
Yeah.
He's ready to go for a walk.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got that look. Harper, you want to go scoop out some ice out of the pool?
Ice? You like ice?
Gonna do that ice. Wow, look at the River Valley. 26 in Fort Smith.
Man.
27 in Stigler. 27 in Russellville. That's that cold air that's trapped in. Now let's look at the RA. Let's look at the relative humidities real quick. Oh, brother. So if you're at 27 and you got a relative humidity at 30 to 40%, that's going to cool the air even more when that precipitation falls.
I like that,
guys. I got to up some ice totals. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
keep in mind here, Ice Storm 98 New York. We can do it. We've lived through it as well. But boy, we got a lot of trees around here. If you ever looked at our terrain, there's a lot of trees. There's a lot of mountains. The Boston Mountains, the Ozarks. Look at that right there. We've got some pretty rough, rugged terrain. Look at the cloud cover too. That ain't going anywhere. That's overcast. Oh, it looks like Mount Sequoia died, huh?
It's been down. I don't know if you saw my text the other day. But,
I did.
Down for
I was
some
like,
time.
great. We got to get that running. Look at the cloud cover.
And the models want to warm up the temperatures into the middle 30s this afternoon. Give me a break.
Yeah, trash. Big time trash. Kind of like that last pass from Jordan Love.
Ooh.
Just throwing a prayer, throwing a heave down the field. I got to give it to Jordan Love, though. He played really well. It was just a dumb pass at the end. It was just not a great decision, but man, that was a tough game.
He's still young, and it's a 7th seed on the road against San Francisco in the rain.
We had it.
You had it. But, I mean, that's a great season, and I'm really excited for the Packers' future. I think they're going to be making some noise over the next several years with Jordan at the helm.
Never know. But
Just wasn't in the NFL script for the Packers.
No,
Correct.
It wasn't. All right, guys. I got to run. We'll catch you guys later. Take care. Thanks for joining on, Peyton and Josh. And, we'll see you later. I'll give you another update before it moves in, so we'll keep you updated. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.